Anyone who has ever been involved in the leadership of a congregation has inevitably been in the situation in which an energetic person describes a vast and exciting set of new programs through which the congregation can engage in its mission. Almost as inevitably, this new idea is greeted with the query of, so how much is this going to cost us? Now, in fairness, this is not such a bad question on its face. A wise leader is a good steward, and so will not seek to lead his or her congregation beyond what the congregation's resources can bear. By the same token, a wise leader also understands that while resources may help shape the form and scope of a missional undertaking, resources should never define the mission of the congregation. The very first congregation of followers of Jesus Christ had an enormous program laid before them in the gospel reading for today, often known as the Great Commission. They were informed that the mission of the church was to be nothing short of gathering all of the nations unto Jesus Christ. And to this end, Christ himself called his first congregation to engage in a massive set of programs of traveling, teaching, discipling, and baptizing. As with all congregational meetings, there were some skeptics in the crowd. It certainly would have seemed to anyone listening that what Jesus articulated as the mission for this small group of believers would have been nothing short of impossible. Just like our congregations today, there were probably 100 or far fewer people there on the mountain, and they had families, jobs, and all manner of responsibilities to attend to in the course of their daily lives. A global mission enacted through a full slate of outreach, Christian education, and worship programs would have been unrealistic at best. However, Jesus does not just spell out the mission in this passage. He also explained that his first congregation had the necessary resource at hand in order to accomplish this mission. He did it by saying this in his famous words at the end of the Great Commission, "Lo, I am with you always, even to the end of the age." Here is the great truth, that when God calls us to be involved in God's own mission, God also provides the fullness of resources for us to carry out all that we need to do in order to accomplish this mission. In this case, Jesus specifically reminds his followers that they will not be alone in their task, but that he, with all of the grace, love, power, and authority he has, will be with them. The wise and faithful leader is one who is a good steward of the resources God has given to his or her congregation. The wise and faithful leader is also one that understands that God will never allow the carrying out of God's own mission to be stymied for lack of resources. The wise leader, like the leaders of that first congregation on the mountain, learns to sync his or her own programs to the mission Christ has articulated, and then to wait patiently upon God for the resources necessary to accomplish God's will. Now, hear me properly with this. I'm not trying to suggest here that a wise leader is engaged in simply the power of positive thinking, nor is this about mind over matter. I am not suggesting that if we just try hard enough, we can overcome any barrier that faces us. What I am suggesting, however, is that just as easily as we can fall into the trap of assuming that God will do everything for us without our being wise about what our resources are, we can also become slothful in carrying out God's mission because we just assume we simply do not have what it takes to do what God has called us to do. A good leader is one who trusts God, both first to provide the mission, and then secondly, the resources for that mission to be enacted through whatever programs are necessary. And a wise leader is one who helps his or her congregation enact the programs that are necessary to engaging in that mission.